Now this video details how I mixed the silver wheel paint for the MT-09 wheel project that's upcoming very shortly. I go back a long ways with paint, back into the 60s in fact, working with paint. And that's a lot of years and a lot of paint, a lot of spray guns, and a lot of a lot of mistakes I had to correct. And along the way I've learned some valuable lessons, and I've enjoyed sharing what I've learned on my YouTube channel that has over 2,400 videos now. We better change that title pretty soon. But anyway, I'm going to try to share some useful information on this video about mixing paint. Now this video is going to be about mixing and testing silver paint. Silver paint is something that I worked on in the development of Brodak dope and the pigmentation, and I'm going to go over that. I'm going to share some of the good information about how to pigment and make your own paint, where to buy the pigment, where to buy the paint. It's something that somebody that's interested in painting may be able to pick up some good useful tips. I know over the years I've learned a lot from YouTube. Maybe I can put something back in the kitty today. Now all the wheels we painted over the years, they're all out on the channel, of course, in detail, and the RCR, basically every one of these, even a couple of spares, and some wheels for our friends. We painted, bottom line is we painted a lot of wheels, and actually the paint, especially on the ones we've done in the last maybe 10 years, has been exceptional. Really exceptional. The ones on this bike, I think they look like the day I painted them. And I do have some of this paint left over, but what I have is, what I'm looking to do is make a bright silver, a little bit different than this, or maybe the same. But I want to be able to test it out in the sunlight. So what I did is I made a spare wheel, and I made it so I can do like a clock and do all my testing, and then take it out in the sun and pick whichever one of the silvers I like right up on the motorcycle. So, and the MT-09 has been a special motorcycle to me. It was a birthday present from my wife, so I've got to treat it absolutely like royalty. Anyway, I do want to share some good information. I don't want to spend time out here because it's basically not much over freezing, and I'm looking to get in a house where it's a lot more fun. And maybe it'll warm up this afternoon. We get some of the spray testing. If it doesn't warm up, we'll just wait for another day. But we will share a lot of good information for people that really are serious and want to mix their own paint colors. And I have a lot of experience doing it, and I hope some of this I can put in a useful format that you can use. Now for anybody interested in gold wheels, when I did the restoration of this motorcycle, this is a 500-hour restoration, I mixed my own gold paint with pigments from Amazon. All that information is out on my channel. You type my name in quotation marks and gold wheels, and they'll all come up. So my ultimate goal is I want to have the wheels to be the brightest silver possible to coordinate with the blue. I really like that combination when I did the R1. The silver wheels and not chrome. Now, I know a lot of people do like chrome wheels, and I'm not poo-pooing it, but it's a subjective thing. And for me, I would prefer the kind of silver that was on Joe Roselli's the MV Augusta. I like that bright, shiny silver that sparkles in the sun a lot more than chrome. But all of this work is subjective. I don't want this to linger on here. I want to get down in that cellar. It is really cold out here this morning. And some of the bikes, I've got two sets of wheels and I've painted each one different. It allows me to evil twin the bikes out very easily whenever there's a tire change. And I know Dallas has an affection for this motorcycle. Dallas, all I can say is I did a lot of work on these wheels and I think it paid big time. And I always say that two things you can do if you have a totally stock motorcycle, you want to personalize it. The paint job is number one. Number two is a set of custom wheels. And you've got a totally custom bike. And if you do it right, everybody will be jealous. And we've been trying to document all the mods on the MT-09 throughout this whole year and a little bit that I've had it. And I did order another windshield. That's coming from China right now. I put that information on yesterday's video. We do try to share a video of what we're doing in the world of motorcycling every day, and hope you enjoy it. So because I'm trying to share useful information, and I know not everybody's a painter or has experience painting, some basic information. This is from 2016. It's the R1 wheels, and it's the spare paint. Of course, I still have it. Now I want to show it up close, because if you look close, you can see at the bottom, there's the pigment. That's This is the binder. That's the pigment. And what happens if you store it and you keep this airtight, and I store it for year after year after year, it'll never go bad. Paint never ages out. It's not like people. It's not like me. So what happens is, if you notice, you go to open up a can of paint from 10 years ago and there's no binder, you can just add binder as long as you know what binder it is. And most modern paints are interchangeable, not all, most. And so what I want to do right now, this is pretty simple. Before I do anything, I want to shake it until the bottom of this is the color of the paint. And this will be our baseline for mixing the other colors. I want to look at it. Now, it's not going to work out the way I wanted today because we don't have any sunlight out there. And I wanted to see all this in the sunlight. I wanted to paint in the sunlight. So what I'm going to do is set all the colors up that I'm ready to paint. And we're going to have to wait for a day that I can get outside, but I'll have all the jars. And thank you, Turbo Steve, for saving me all those jars. And after 5 minutes or so, you can see all the pigment and binder are homogenized, mixed together. And of course, the older the paint is, the longer that's going to take to do. But now we have, this is our baseline for all our paint testing. We know the R1 wheels were really nice. I'm looking to make them even better if I can. And it's a personal thing, but I think that the Yamaha blue combined with the sparkly silver wheels that are not chrome, but just a bright color silver, I think that's a beautiful, beautiful combination. So what I want to explain, and it's just a thing of sharing useful information. This is silver base. I have, and this is what I'm going to be using later, the B25 silver. I tested this in 2002. This is a color I developed for model airplanes. I still have the model upstairs. Maybe later on in the video I'll go up and take a couple pictures of it. But I really need a sunny day to show that silver. These colors, when you're not under a bright sunlight, they're not sparkly. Okay, I have the other one, and again, this is a silver. They look very similar. They look similar till you take them out in the sun. This is the one I just shook up. And this is last year's. I wanted to show this. This is the binder. We have two of them. Notice I have it marked for mixing, What it is, that's gold. You can see the gold pigment. That's the gold pigment I bought from Amazon last year. And this is clear binder. So this is what I'm going to use to mix the silver paint with. This is a big flake silver, and I know you can't see this on the video that much. I did Pokey's BMW with this. Now I remember taking it, and this is just a quick picture I'm inserting into the video. This was a job I did for Pokey. He provided the paint, and the flakes were really big, but I did have that little overage. But once it was clear coated out, wet sanded and buffed, it looked absolutely amazing, absolutely beautiful. And it's almost metal flake. I don't know that that's appropriate for what I'm trying to do. I don't know, but I will do a test, of course. And then I have, this is the thing I wanted to show, and this is where we're trying to share information. This is raw pigment, and it gives the formula for using it if you're using Brodak dope. Then I have diamond dust, the silver dust. You can tell how old the can is. I used to use this in the 60s and the 70s to paint Harleys with, and we painted a lot of them. Silver flakes, micro flakes, they used to be pretty expensive. In fact, one of them they were 80 bucks for this little jar years ago. Some other, it used to be bronze powder was the thing of choice. But again, this is raw pigment. And then we have the real high-tech stuff that's in an aspirin bottle. This is the stuff that, I don't know what it's made out of, but it really sparkles. Anyway, and this is the color that I developed, and it's called B25 silver. And it's Brodak dope. It's still available. But what it is now, I'm going to try to mix several samples up today and get them all ready for a spray test next time we have a shop day. Since I'm trying to share useful information, here's a great tip if you're new to painting. And this is a color that I obviously used on something. I believe this was the paint. Najat bought some real high-tech paint, and he had it custom mixed. And we have this. But guess what happened? See how the paint's dripped? Because years ago we didn't care. I was just thinking, I'll never use that again. Well, I learned my lesson. Because if I had this motorcycle and I needed to go buy this matching paint, and don't think you just go buy silver paint and it matches. Not really. So it's always a good idea to cut that label out, which I just did on the MT09 blue paint, and save it and catalog it, because if you need to go buy more paint, there you go. You don't want to have this. What you want to have is the real paint, that real label. Now, because I'm working on the MT09, I have this, and this is the code. Let's call it the code, and who mixed the paint. So if I need more, if I ever would have an accident with the bike, or I want to make a matching bike, that's the code. And Yamaha doesn't make it available to other people. You got to go get. I've never found it except Colorite, and Colorite doesn't have that color blue. I took a picture of how they were mixing the paint. It's all on a previous video, but you just can't go to a body shop and buy matching paint. They don't have the code. Okay, I wanted to show some of the choices. Now see, these are big flakes. These are what I had in gold that I used on the original GS gold wheels. Used it on one of Glenn's set of wheels. They're really big flakes. I don't know if you can see how sparkly they are. And the paint that we did Pokey's tank with, I think it had some of this in there. And micro sequin flakes. They're really sparkly in the sun. But again, I have a look in my mind of what I want. I don't want it chrome. I don't want it metal flake. I have a picture in my mind. And I think it's going to be doable, but it's going to be a little bit of work. Now, I remember this. I remember painting motorcycles with this. And boy, does this sparkle in the sun. It's almost as, I say almost metal flake. It really is flake. But you have to bury this in the old days of acrylic lacquer. You'd have to bury this in 10 coats of acrylic lacquer and hand sand it and buff it. But when you were done, it really looked pretty cool. Now, this is what you add to paint when you want it to be really, really ultra shiny. This is what you would mix. This is actually part of what we were doing when we were developing the B25 silver. Now and that was in 2002. In 2002, there were not a lot of, silver was just one color of a car line. You didn't have like you have now, Mercedes and BMW and all these cars with these exotic silvers and pearls. But anyway, this made some really good custom paint that I used many times in modeling. Again, you can put a little scoop of this in paint to brighten it up. Just makes it a brighter color. And this is the finest of the powder. This is really powdery. This blows away in the wind. But this adds a little tint to it. It makes it a little more look, the look of aluminum. If you were trying to make a part to make it look like it was made out of aluminum, you probably could paint a side cover of an engine with high temperature binder and it would really look like aluminum, because the reason is it's ground up aluminum probably. So whenever you're going to mix paint, it's really handy to have extra jars. And of course, again, Turbo Steve and Karen both saved me the jars. This is the clear binder. It's decanted. It's from actually 2 years ago. It's been sitting here. All the gold pigments at the bottom. So I can leave a little bit of binder in here. It won't matter. But when I pour off the top, what's going to happen? It's basically clear binder. And we don't need to make a lot. This is just to do a test. And any paint that's been sitting any length of time is going to almost always pigment at the bottom. Gravity takes over. The pigment's heavier than the paint. And you can pour off the top within reason. But it's got to be sitting there. So we start everything with clear binder. So there's always the question of how much pigment do you put in? Well, if you over pigment paint, and in modeling we used to decant almost everything to increase the pigment. But there's a point at which the paint's going to not stick, really. The binder is there to hold the pigment in place. So it's always just a rough guess in the beginning. This is our basic silver powder. We'll start with, we don't have to, this doesn't have to be real accurate. I can tell when I look at how a paint sprays out what it's going to look like. You need to just stir it up. Another thing, whenever you mix your own paint with your own pigment, it's always a good idea to strain it before you spray it, in case there's some little something in there. That the factory would always have done that when they pre-mix paint. But when you're doing it yourself, sometimes you have to take that into account. Now, if I do this, and again, this is all stuff you can buy off the internet. I know you can buy it now. I didn't, but that's from 20 years ago. As I shake it up, you notice I got silver paint. Wow, that was pretty easy. And now with paint, and I've noticed, this is a funny thing, and so did Scott notice it. You go to buy any paint that's got pearl in it, or any of these real high-end super matching Cadillacs and BMW paint, they're super expensive. If you can mix your own, who needs it? Anyway, now this will be my first test. This will be for the first day when we get to spray. I'm just going to mark the label as this will be test 1. So now when I put these, lay them down, we're in fluorescent lighting here. And in fluorescent lighting, you really can't tell, but this is just one shade darker than this. This, if you notice how the light reflects off of that light spot that you see light reflecting, this is just a tiny bit duller, not a whole lot. But again, that's why we're going to paint a test wheel, so we can see this in sunlight in the real world. And it's only going to be a subtle difference, but anybody that's really fussy about paint, I'm sure will notice it. Now we can brighten this up and we can darken this. We have two choices. We can add a little bit of blue to this to tone it down, and we could put a couple of drops of that real sparkly stuff from... Okay, we're going to do the same thing, but using some of the other pigment. The idea is to get 3, 4, I don't know how many different ones we're going to have, and then get parts of that wheel painted and see which we prefer the best. Get Karen to get some input. Put clear on all of them. Make sure we're happy with it, because I don't want anything to go wrong once I pull that wheel off the MT-09 and get all the hand sanding and hand grinding on the spokes. I don't want to at that point in time go, oh, why didn't you do a different... Oh. No, I want it to be right. I want to have the deck all stacked in my favor. Now this part of the test, again, if you look at this in broad daylight, it looks very different than under fluorescent lights. This is pigment paste, and what happens with pigment paste is, this is a very funny thing. The flakes, the little flakes of silver, are much smaller, so it tends to be a little bit brighter, and that's why when we did the B25 silver, this is what we used, to be honest. This, I know, is a little bit brighter in sunlight. And remember, back in 2002, you really didn't have a lot of cars with these pearlescent and fluorescent paint jobs and everything. No Kawasaki green Camaros or any of that stuff. But just looking at this, now, there's no sunlight today. Today's a day, and it's going to rain any minute. We're not going to be able to paint. But if you look at this, let me see if I can show this up. See, it's hard to, under these conditions, to show just how bright that is relative to the other. You really can't tell. I've got to be out in the sunlight. But you see there's a chunk of pigment down there. So what this means, I've got to get the cap and shake plenty and strain the paint before we do the test. But this will be our second batch, and it'll be, I'll write on here, paste pigment. Now this is, you really can see that this is, when you, even in fluorescent light, I can see that's the brighter of the 3 pigment choices that we have, and it is paste pigment. Now I don't know what role that plays in it, but it's a whole different thing, and it's, when we're going to do this out in the sun and get these parts clear coated, I think you'll see, and it'll be very easy to pick which one we're going to like. But this will be one of the choices. So that's our 3 choices: the baseline, paste, powder, and the one I still want to do a little test on is the one with the bigger flakes. Again, the one, it's really the leftover paint from Pokey's BMW. I want to make a sample of that too. Now if you look at this real close, this is the biggest of the flakes, and I don't know if you can see. Can you see it here? I'm trying. So what this will mean, if I do a test and I want to make the flakes bigger, I can put an ounce of this into the mix when I mix the final amount. But being able to test it in sunlight is the whole test. So we're going to wind up with 4 test samples to try. So this was a big thing today, to get our samples all, basically get our ducks in a row. And again, if all else fails, we can just use this. We have enough paint in there to paint the wheels. But I'd like to make another batch, and I'd like it to be a little bit brighter. And if I can't get that, I know I've got plenty of other choices, and I still don't know about this. I remember when I did Pokey's gas tank, I thought, wow, that might look good on wheels, but you never, that's something that's in the eye of the beholder. Now, I do remember with Pokey's BMW, I do remember how nice that particular color reflected the light. In this case, look, it's reflecting the fluorescent light in a reddish tone, and in the bottom it's reflecting the turquoise, And I remember taking that out in the sun and thinking, ooh, that's really nice. Now it's big flakes, you got to bury it in a lot of clear. Now I try to keep the paint, and with the cost of paint going through the roof, every one of these tubs is full of some paint. There's even one of candy apple lacquer. And lacquer, no, who sells lacquer anymore? Nobody. But anyway, I still have it, and believe me, that paint is still usable. So now I can keep this organized, put everything here that I'm going to need for the future for the painting, and I have my part. I think that test part is going to work out great. Not sure, but again, you never know if you don't do the test yourself. And in the world we live in now, I kind of don't want to take anybody's word for anything. I just want to do the test myself, figure out if it works for me, and then if it does work, share the information with you. So I keep all the extra stuff that relates to our mixing silver paint, keep it in a separate tub. We're going to be working on that as soon as we get a paintable day, but we really stacked the deck today. Now, I'm always glad when I finish a job and I have a little bit of paint left over, enough that if I have to do a touch-up or whatever, or just to have it in my inventory. And having these 4 samples, I'll be able to pick and choose, mix and match, add pigment, take pigment away. But there's one final thing I thought I'd want to try before I paint the wheel, and that is mixing up some 2-part urethane and putting a pigment in. I'm not going to do that today because once I mix it, I got to use it. I'll have to save that for the very end of the test. But this was a big thing to get this done today, and I hope it gave me a chance to share some painting information. And I've had a lot of experience painting things in my lifetime, and not the kind of things you do if you work in a body shop and everything goes the way it should, and you have a spray booth and everything, and brand new equipment. I've done it with very little inexpensive equipment, and I think I've been able to share that information on YouTube pretty efficiently. Now, I don't do it that often, but I came up to my little Spitfire, I call it the Spitfire bedroom, where some of my models reside, from years gone by, of course. And this is the model, 2002, that we developed that paint specifically for this, and it's why it's called B25 Silver. It was for this model. Now, this is pretty cool, and I know a lot of people have these little things in their house. The late George Venturini made me that picture of the real airplane on vinyl, and we had one of these. I don't know who gave me that. I don't remember. Gone flying windy, but George, rest in peace. God, I look at your picture every day. Now, that color B25 Silver was used on the Spitfire too, Squadron 41 Spitfire, and all I can say is I'm sure it's a very popular paint. And for the last 10 years I've been out of modeling, almost 11 years, but I'm in contact with a lot of my friends, and they still enjoy seeing the videos. I've made every one of my videos free on YouTube. And I even have a little plastic model of a B25. You think that there was a time in my life I had B25 t-shirts and memorabilia, belt buckles, to whatnot. And this is part of the model railroad that I have, and we use this. As soon as the weather gets socked in, Miles will be up here running the trains. But we have a little model plane flying field and the same B25. I just thought you'd enjoy that. That's the history of the B25 paint that Brodak still sells. So while I'm mixing silver paint, I smell chili. Now what this?
This is medium spicy chili.
Medium.
Not too spicy.
Should put a little silver pigment in there, maybe make silver chili?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
It's ready.
Oh, I could tell. It smells great. It'll taste even better for supper. We're going to have it tonight or not?
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. So as soon as we get weather, and I'm really looking forward to it, we're going to start working on that wheel. I am coming up on a point in time now. My son is coming from Denver to stay with us for 2 weeks. May have some gaps in the video. I don't know, but I don't know what he wants to do. But we'll have some fun. And Karen and Craig both love to cook. They're going to be cooking up some special stuff. We'll try to share it on video, but I doubt for that time there's going to be a gap that it's going to be difficult to shoot video and edit it and whatever. But getting this done, this was a big step in the right direction to getting these MT-09 wheels painted. I hope you have gotten some information or just been entertained watching it. And when we finish these wheels, I want these to be the pride of the fleet. Now, one of the things I really learned the hard way over the years, and I've been painting for a lot of years, is how colors change from different lighting conditions. Now think of something, and this is a good way to put it. If you're in a total darkness, there's no color at all. As you add light in the different parts of the light spectrum, the colors change. And when you make the light really, really bright, like on a TV movie scene or something, well, the colors change and get brighter. Then you take it out in sunlight. In sunlight, they get even different and brighter. So, but most of all, they get that way, golds and silvers and metallics. But they all change. And I've just been very conscious of it. I've made, as you can see earlier in the video, the B-25 model and the Spitfire. Both have little minor repairs that I had to repair. And I was glad I had matching touch-up paint. Very glad. Anyway, those modeling days are great, great memories. The things I learned as a modeler have made my life so much different than if I was a golfer, say. I don't know. Maybe better, maybe worse. Maybe if I was Tiger Woods, I wouldn't be making these videos. Anyway, Karen's up there making chili. Craig is on his way from Denver. We're going to be having a visit with him over the holidays, the whole holiday season, a couple of weeks. We're really looking forward to working on these wheels. But the one thing I learned years ago, never rush painting. Patience always pays. And today we got a big piece of the puzzle there. And we do try to shoot a video every day and share it. So if you enjoyed the video, I hope you share it with your friends. And of course, I hope, most of all, that we'll see you tomorrow. And thanks again for watching.